Hey, how are you getting on? Today on Bald, Tired and Confused, we have ourselves a cab fest with the KHE CSX cab switcher. Guitar speakers and cabinets make a huge difference in shaping the electric guitar's tone, as regular viewers of this channel will know. And awareness for this fact, quite frankly, has significantly increased in the recent past, much to my delight. And I know this fact to be true because I have more guitar speakers and cabs than sense, but I've never really switched between cabinets in one session. And that's where the KHE CSX 8 comes in. Now, before I go any further, this has to be considered a sponsored video because KHE sent the CSX 8 to me for me to make a video. The full story, for full transparency, is I was looking for an amp and cab switcher to replace my Egnator SS4 that I used for the longest time on this channel, and I posted this in the rock and metal amps, pedals, and I can't remember gear group on Facebook that I co-admin with a few friends. And John from Sonic Drive Studios tagged KHE to get in there. And I got talking to Marcus from KHE and we got along well. And seeing as how there's an amp switcher in pretty much every one of my amp videos, he offered me a discount on one. And he made a few suggestions on which switchers might be cool. One of them being the CSX 8 because he didn't have a dedicated video for that on his website yet. However, I needed the capability to switch amps too, so I took him up on the discount for an ACS 4x4 that you have seen on the channel before and that we will see later in this video. But then I offered to make a video for the CSX 8 if he was willing to lend me one, and that's where we are right now. And truth be told, I've had this switcher sitting here for months, since the summer, and I feel very bad about that. Anyway, I want to show you how the switcher works, how it's set up and what it can do, and then we're going to switch the 6 cabs behind me right here. Let's talk about the setup. I'm going to mic up one speaker in each of these cabs, right where the dust cap meets the cone. 4 of these cabs have V30s in them and 2 of them have different speakers in them. I'm going to go into detail later. I just thought it'd be cool to have a few V30 cabs to just see or roughly estimate how much influence the cab has, and then mix it up a bit with a few different setups, different speakers, and different cabs. Each of them is going to be mic'd up with the Shure SM57, and I'm going to place an Austrian Audio ODH18 pretty much in front of where I'm sitting now so we can get some room sounds. Thing is, because that requires at least 7 inputs, I can't use my usual cork sniffery 500 series preamps, but I have this Behringer Ultragain digital 8200 or what it is here. I'm going to use that so every microphone sees the same preamp. I'm using Gravity CABS CL01 mic stands here, and Gravity were cool enough to send me a few out for this test because I didn't have enough. You keep asking for this mic stand, so I'm going to link it down in the description. It's an affiliate link. That makes me money because I can feel the tentacles of capitalism slowly wrapping themselves around my neck. But you can buy them anywhere you want. You don't have to use my affiliate link. That's just a suggestion. Let me show you the cabs and the speakers I'm going to mic up. This old Marshall cab, I think, is from the 80s. It started out as a bass cab. It's a 1935 model. It's got V30s in the bottom and a Fane F25 and a greenback from 2003 in the top. I've set this cab up for a shootout between those 2 speakers later. I'm miking up the greenback where the dust cap meets the cone. This orange cab started out as an orange PPC HP8, so loaded with K100s. At the moment, it has vintage 30s from the 80s in it, and I'm miking up a vintage 30 from the year 1986, so a year 1 V30, one of my favorite speakers. This is a Mesa 412 oversized, probably mix those words up. It has speakers in it from the year 2003, so I'm going to mic up that one. This Engel 412 XXL is the heaviest thing I own that's not a car. It has vintage 30s in it, also from the year 2003. I'm going to mic that up in the same position as the one above that. This here is one of my most interesting cabs. It is a THC 412. It's a very lightweight cab. It's got really interesting construction in there, loads of baffles and boards in there to deflect sound. It sounds as good as it looks bad. It's from a German company that doesn't exist anymore. I think Part of that company became ICE Amplification later. Anyway, it has neodymium speakers in it, which make the cab extra light, and the top row is filled with Celestion Century Vintages. I'm going to mic up one of those where the dust cap meets the cone. And down here is the newest addition to my cabinet collection. It is a Harley Benton G412 Plus. You have seen this in a few videos, and you will see it in a few more because I've planned various experiments with it. At the moment, it's loaded with V30s. And I'm going to mic up one from the year 2002. I'm using my EVH5153 here. I'm going to put the CSX 8 on top of that. And yeah, we're just going to get cracking. All right, before we start, there's just one more thing I want to show you because I think it's really cool. I was actually going to save it up for the section of the video where we look at the unit and check out its layout and the functions, but it's pertinent right now. I have the cab connections 1 to 6 connected to the cabs next to me here. And you can see the 6 LEDs here are illuminated. 1 is illuminated fully and 2 to 6 are just illuminated slightly. So the one fully illuminated is the one active. We can switch them here with these mini switches or with a MIDI floorboard, which I will be doing in a minute. And you can see 7 and 8 are not illuminated and I can't switch to them. It'll blink here. So I have a cable connected to output or cab connection number 7, and it still won't let me switch to that. So there's an open load detection. I actually have to connect a wire here and actually bridge these for the LED to be slightly illuminated. So I'm not entirely sure how that works. I assume there's a little current being sent through, and if that doesn't get back home, that means there's an open load, and the unit won't let you switch to it. You really have to try hard to mess up your stuff using these units. I think that's very cool, and I just wanted to show you that before we get to the cabs. All right, here we go. I'm all set up now, and before you say it, I know the cabs on the top will sound different than the cabs on the bottom. The cabs on wheels will sound different than the cabs without wheels. And angled cabs sound different than straight cabs. Ideally, I'd put them all on the floor, all the same way, but this is all the space I have. So I use my affiliate links more. Maybe I can rent an empty warehouse or something. Anyway, the cabs are numbered 1, 2. So 1 is the Marshall, 2 is the Orange, 3 the Mesa, 4 the Engel, 5 the THC, and 6 the Harley Benton. And according to the LEDs there, if I know me, I'll probably put on screen which cab you can hear now. This is more anecdotal testing. This is just for fun. This is not scientific. We just want to see what the KHE CSX can do. So let's go. This is a fun toy. I'm enjoying myself. What I found interesting immediately was, at least in the room, how different the Mesa Boogie and the Engel sound to each other. They're both oversized cabs, and they both have vintage 30s from the year 2003 in them. So I was halfway expecting them to sound closer than they do. I do have to take into account, though, that the Mesa Boogie is on top of the Engel, and it's probably beaming right into my ear. That's maybe why it sounds a little brighter in the room. I'll have to check under the microphone. But really interesting. Let's toggle back and forth between them a bit. Let's toggle back and forth between the cabs on the ground that all have V30s in them. So the Harley Benton, the Engel, and the Orange. Let's check out the three cabs on top. So the Marshall, the Mesa, and the THC in that order. This is so much fun. Surprisingly, I really like the sound of the Harley Benton cab, and the THC cab sounds really cool and interesting too. That has two Century Vintages on top and two Jensen Neo fins at the bottom. And I think I might want to change out those older Jensens with the newer Jensen neodymium speakers, some Tornado Stealth 65 or SEs, but that's a topic for a different video. Let's take a look at the ins and outs of the units and how you can set it up and how it works together with other KHE units. Alright, so the CSX8, you can connect 8 cabs and 1 amp to this switcher. So you have mini switches here for your 8 cabs. You can switch those. There's a little control button with an LED here that is important if you want to program the unit or change some settings with the software that's on this. And the back panel is very simple as well. We have our input, that's where we connect our amp. We have connections for 8 cabinets. There's an input labeled 5 to 8 here that doesn't have a function right now, but the manual, which is excellent by the way, it's great documentation. I'm usually a guy who skips reading the manual sometimes and screws up, but the documentation here is just so good, and as somebody with an engineering degree from Germany, that manual is just porn for me. Excellent documentation. And anyway, the manual says that this is not in use yet, but may be activated later through a firmware upgrade. So he's cooking there. Maybe we'll be able to connect up 2 amps to this later. This through output here is in parallel to the input here, and we can use that to link further units. So there's something I want to try out later in the video. We have 3 MIDI connections here. We have a MIDI in, which you use to control this switcher with a floorboard, for example, which I just did. And we have control in and control out. We use these to connect the control lines or further KHE switcher units if we want to build a switcher array, for example. And here the power connection. Let's switch this on. So So I've got the power connector in. I'm connecting the MIDI cable to the MIDI in connection. I'll be using this MIDI Z12 MIDI floorboard. Because we can't switch anything without loads connected, I'm just going to connect 2 cabs here with ridiculously long speaker cables to, let's say, cabinet 1. That always needs to be plugged in as far as I know. And let's take cabinet 5. And let's switch on a unit. And as you can see there, it runs a little check on the power on. It kind of runs through the outputs to see where there's loads connected. And as previously, only the LEDs light up where there are cabs connected. So I can't switch to 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. I can only switch back and forth with these mini switches between 1 and 5. So say I want to program this with my MIDI board. What I do is I select the channel I want. Let's say MIDI command 3. Nothing happens here. None of these are active. And I want to use cab 1. We can see the control LED is flashing here. I push this once and it illuminates red. That means every time I push the 3 button on my angle foot switch, I have that setting. Let's put cabinet 5 on the button next to that, 4, and save. Now I can switch them back between these. Neat, eh? So next thing I want to show you is the setup menu on the unit. And this has software on it, which you might not think because there's no fancy touch screen or menu buttons on it. It all works with these switches and the control button. If we hold the control button for 2 seconds, it starts flashing, I think, once per second. And with these first 4 switches, we can activate and deactivate certain functions of the unit. And I had to check the manual which functions those 4 switches have. So AMP switch 1 activates or deactivates recall mode. That means when you power the unit off and on again with recall mode on, it goes to the last setting it had. Switch 2 controls, I think, dual cab mode. So you can run 2 amps, 2 cab that way. We don't want to use that, or I don't want to use that for the time being. Switch 3 is a ground lift that this unit doesn't have, and switch 4 activates or deactivates the attenuator insert loop if the unit has one. But there's a second layer. If we push control once, you can see it flashes twice now. We can assign the unit a MIDI channel 1 to 15, and it's binary. So this LED is 1, this LED is 2, this LED is 4, and this LED is 8. And we can assign MIDI channels 1 to 15. So this is 1. If I click that again, it switches to MIDI channel 2. Again, 1 and 2 is 3. This is binary. 4, this one. 5, these 2. 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way to 15. Yeah, 15. And then we're back to 1 again. And I think this is really cool. I think this is really neat because it's really efficient. All we need is a few switches and LEDs and maybe sometimes the manual to consult. But in a world where everything is filled with touchscreens and complicated setups, I think this is brilliant. Very old school and very clever. I love it. So let's link 2 units. I'm going to get my ACS 4x4 that I own. I'm going to link this to this unit. I haven't done this before. I've only read about it, so I'm curious to see how I get along. So first thing we need to do is assign the second unit a different MIDI channel. What you're supposed to do is have the first unit in your array have MIDI channel 1, second one MIDI channel 3, third one MIDI channel 3. You get the idea. You can link up to 15 units to make an array, a switcher array of up to 15 units. So I guess the MIDI channel acts as something like an identifier, like an IP address would for computers. So what we do is we enter the setup menu again. This flashes once, push it again, flashes twice. So we're in the channel setup. Push this once. Now this has MIDI channel 2. I hold this for 2 seconds and exit the menu. Now I turn this off according to the manual and I get my other unit. I'm going to put this foam on top of this unit because it is a loaner unit. I don't want to scratch it. I put my ACS 4x4 on top of that. So I'm going to put the MIDI into my primary unit. I don't screw up the connector. And we need to link the control lines and the power line. So what we do is we take one of these cute little MIDI cables that are included. This goes into control out, and to this one's control in. And the way we link the power line is we take a short speaker cable, put that into the attenuator loop send, and that goes into the input of the cab switcher. And just to make sure this works, I'm going to connect one of the speakers to cab output 1 on the top unit and connect an amplifier to amp out 1 on this. So now we're supposed to power these on. It worked. The control LEDs were supposed to turn green, and we can see cabinet 1 is connected here, but I can now switch cabinets here. That is cool. So let's say I want this on MIDI channel 1. Yep. This is flashing. Okay. 2. I want this combination. Both are flashing. On 3. I want this combination. 1, 2, 3. Cool. That was easy. First time I ever tried this, and it worked immediately. That is cool. That is fantastic design. I think the guys at KHE did a great job. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun. I think the CSX is a really cool unit, and if this place ever gets converted into living space and I have more room, or if I eventually get to move into a bigger house where I can set up all my cabs, I think I might get one of these to hook up to my ACS 4x4 permanently, just so I can switch through all my cabinets, because that's a lot of fun, although I probably waste a lot of time on it. Check out KHE's website. I'll link it below in the description. Thank you so much to KHE for sending me this unit to try out. Sorry it took me months to make a video about it. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!